For a dozen Swansea High School students, the Healthy Mind and Body program provides a welcome break from normal classroom activity. It's also addressing the growing problem of childhood obesity, teaching students the importance of exercise, hygiene and healthy food.
They eat a lot of junk food and stuff like that, so we thought, and a lot of them are not healthy either. They just sit around, they just watch television and video games and stuff like that. And we thought, well, let's try something different and try and get them fit and healthy.
The program may still be in its infancy, but the message about healthy living is already filtering through.
That we should eat healthy foods and do a lot of activities.
It keeps your body fit and it's really good.
It's hoped the program will be used in schools across the region. Colleen West, NBN News. Dressed in their official uniforms, the reality of representing Australia is finally sinking in for these 15 indoor soccer players. It's the largest ever contingent of northern New South Wales athletes to earn a berth in the World Futsal Championships, which start next week in Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, Samoa and Brazil. Taking the reins of the under-12 boys side will be Newcastle coach George Poulos.
I'm off to Argentina and Uruguay, so I hope to learn from the coaching techniques and what they do over there.
Ben Higgins is looking forward to representing his country for the second consecutive year in the under-15s competition.
More experience and hopefully seeing the Argentine players, because they're supposed to be really skilled, so versing against them, see how we go.
It's hoped a strict training regime has prepared players for the 16-day tour, in which they'll contest as many as 22 games. The side was selected following the Northern New South Wales Country Cricket Championships in Lismore on the weekend. Simon Moore will join the Northerners for his 5th consecutive year, this time taking on a more prominent role as captain.
So hopefully a bit of experience and help the young fellas out and hopefully improve on our result from last year.
Then the side had its worst ever result, finishing 4th, but Moore is confident his boys can lift their game in South Australia.
When teams like Queensland and Victoria prepare 3 months in advance and we get to meet a couple of days before we go away, it is tough, but it's something we've been used to and hopefully it won't be a factor.
Meantime, the Hunter Pirates basketball team is welcomed this week's bye and will head to Gloucester for a 2-day training camp.
We want to identify what are we doing well right now, what can we improve on, and how we're going to go about doing that.
And it seems there's plenty of work to be done, the Pirates winning just 1 game this season. Colleen West, NBN News. These are just some of the surfers Newcastle will be pinning its hopes on this weekend. In a first for the country, 88 competitors from the Hunter, Central Coast and Queensland will contest an all-female teams surfing event.
There's no other team events that cater for women. I mean, girls are allowed to compete in the guys' events, but because they're generally not as strong, they haven't been chosen. So just if we have an all-girls comp, they get to have a chance at competing in teams.
Some made the most of today's less than ideal conditions to clear competition cobwebs, among them New South Wales representative Tyler Charlton, who will use the 2-day event as preparation for the Australian junior titles next week at Stradbroke Island.
The girls are just more aggressive, more experienced, strong and they're just good surfers.
Also hoping to earn valuable competition points for her team of 8 will be 17-year-old Tanya Garden, who finished 4th at this year's State Open. Each surfer will be given just 11 minutes to find the perfect wave, their best 2 rides contributing to a team score. Colleen West, NBN News. It may not be in its final form, but this prototype could revolutionise the world of dating. The Friend Finder has been modelled on the Japanese Love Getty, which, through the help of a small computer, assists couples in finding one another in a crowded place.
A device where people enter their personal details into them, and when they're in contact with another person carrying the same unit, these personal details are swapped, and they can look at the other person's details, decide whether or not they want to meet that person.
Details can be as specific as a person's age, height, eye colour and occupation, or whatever it is you think may attract that perfect someone. The project is one of 60 on display at the University of Newcastle and features the final works of electrical, computer and telecommunication engineering students. Meanwhile, countless hours of work has ended for fifth-year architecture students. Jessica Chen is hoping this Islamic Centre and Bath's development will challenge what architecture is all about.
It would be great if you could experience the space and you actually feel what the architect has tried to do, instead of just, oh, okay, that's a beautiful building, but so what?
Colleen West, NBN News.
This is what Hunter Water wants to make a thing of the past in Lake Macquarie. Raw sewage bubbling up through suburban streets during heavy downpours of rain. To fix the problem, the corporation is upgrading the wastewater system around the lake. Work has already been carried out at Swansea and Booragul, with work on the system between Warners Bay and Belmont about to begin.
That involves putting in larger pumps and putting in larger pipes. Plus also we're carrying out some source control. In other words, we're trying to minimise the amount of rainwater that gets into our sewerage system.
The upgrade work will help the system cope during heavy rain, so less waste winds up in the lake.
Either rainwater gets into people's house drains or it gets into cracks or other problems in Hunter Water's own sewerage system, and that can lead to overflows.
Meantime, after $2 million worth of upgrading work, the Chichester Dam near Dungog will reopen to the public on November the 29th. Paul Lobb, NBN News. Both sides opened up early chances at Energy Australia Stadium, but neither team could land one. As steady rain fell, Newcastle fans had something to cheer about momentarily when Ryan Griffiths cleaned up a spilt ball from Olympic goalie Brett Hughes, only to have the goal disallowed by the linesman. Newcastle was denied again in the goal mouth. Adam Griffiths found the side of the net, while Milan Blagojevic found a knee problem. Controversy followed this tackle by Robbie Middleby, after which he was red-carded by referee Craig Zeta. Tempers flared with several players getting involved in a scuffle. The send-off signalled the beginning of the end for Newcastle, with Zenon Caravella striking for Olympic 5 minutes later. With Newcastle fast losing sight of the top six, Ian Crook is doing some soul-searching.
Look, if I'm not doing the right things, I'll walk. I've got no problem with that. If I believe I'm a cause for it, but I think everybody needs to look at themselves. And I just felt that we didn't show for the last couple of weeks, probably the first time in 2.5 years, where I say we've lacked a real desire and commitment to want to win the game.
At just 13 years old, Casey Neal from Wallsend has risen quickly through the ranks of junior figure skating, with success in August at the State Championships, earning her a shot at the Nationals to be held in Brisbane in 2 weeks' time.
It's quite an achievement, and it's pretty hard in itself. It takes a lot of hard work and long hours at the rink training, and Casey certainly puts that time in.
4 or 5 sessions a week. I do mornings and afternoons. and sometimes the weekends.
Casey is the first in the fledgling Hunter Club's history to make it to the national level.
I'm really happy to be in there.
Singleton's latest land sale has certainly proved a healthy revenue raiser for the council, with the most expensive block selling for $160,000.
That only 12 months ago we're selling blocks of land for 60 to 65,000, and to see prices like that still being achieved, even as you said, after interest rate rises, sort of justifies the market is maintaining itself.
Council sold the previous stage to this at the pinnacle, and the prices have nearly doubled in 12 months.
And according to real estate agents, that boom is thanks largely to locals, with just a handful from the Central Coast, Sydney and Newcastle making bids this morning. The Stage 5 sale of the Pinnacle site at Singleton Heights is just the tip of the iceberg, with another much bigger land sale on the cards to be released in April next year.
It's been land owned by council and a land bank for nearly 20 years, and as demand requires it, council subdivides various parcels of it and into residential and rural residential subdivisions.
It's the 9th such accolade for the McWilliams Mount Pleasant 96 Semillon, but it's by far the sweetest, and it's no wonder.
Semillon as a young wine is renowned for its vibrant, fresh, citrusy flavours of lime and lemon sherbet, and then as the wine ages it develops a lovely toasty and honeyed complexity, and that intensity just improves.
The 98 Semillon also raised eyebrows, beating its highly rated Hunter cousins, named the best dry white table wine in commercial classes. And there's good news too ahead of the next vintage, with the recent wet weather making a timely entrance for the region's grape growers.
Soil's been very dry, so this lovely amount of rain that we've had over the last couple of days has been absolutely fantastic for fruit set.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
The 6 best hockey nations will contest the Champions Trophy in Sydney starting next week. In today's pre-tournament hit-out, third-ranked Australia took it to defending champions China from the start. The Hockeyroos were first to score in a goalmouth scramble won by Carmel Bukerski.
They're a very big, strong team, and they've got a good hitting game, and so I suppose that's one of the things that we have to watch, is being able to make those traps and not be jumping out of the way.
Susie Faulkner followed up with another goal. The Aussie attack continued to hit its mark a total of 5 times. China responded with a single goal. After the match, the Chinese girls were given a dressing down by their coach, who was obviously unhappy with their performance. The Hockeyroos, on the other hand, are looking ahead to the tournament that includes teams from Argentina, Holland and Korea.
We had a good trip to Europe this year where we beat 2 of the top countries. We're ranked 3rd at the moment, so we'd be hoping to make the final.
They're hoping to make up for Australia's rugby loss by beating England in their first match on Saturday. The 1998 Sydney to Hobart race is still fresh in the minds of many sailors. 6 lives lost and 5 boats sunk during an intense storm. A veteran of a dozen Hobart races, Jan Howard hasn't been back since '98, but is this year focusing on the aspects of sailing she loves best.
Great camaraderie, good teamwork, a good physical challenge, and a really good time when you get there.
Jan will be one of 9 crew aboard Lake Macquarie yacht Aurora in this year's race. It'll be skipper Jim Holly's 15th trip, and he's not expecting a dream run.
Well, the last 2 have been very easy, and we've got them there in double quick time, and we've been running spinnakers most of the time, and it's not been Hobart weather at all. So you can't get 3 of them in a row. That's asking too much of the elements, I think.
Throughout his trial, Ross Ernest Brown maintained he wasn't at home on the morning in June 2000 when his wife Judith was killed. He claimed it was the work of an intruder, but a Supreme Court jury thought otherwise. He was found guilty of murder, much to the relief of Judith's family.
This has been a very long 3.5 years and a very difficult ordeal for them, and as it is with a lot of these sort of trials, it brings a closure to the matter to them.
The mother of 3 was bludgeoned to death with a concrete doorstop and died from head injuries. While no one saw Ross Brown attack his wife, 2 neighbours testified he was home at the time, one of them saying she had overheard an argument between the couple. It took 9 hours for the 9-man, 3-woman jury to reach its verdict. 46-year-old Brown has been remanded in custody. He will be sentenced in February. Lyndall Derrig, NBN News.
This green go-kart on steroids is known with confidence as the Fierce Racer by its creators, even though it needed manpower instead of horsepower to make it to today's launch. It's been designed and built by 35 University of Newcastle students as part of their final year study and will compete in the Formula SAE competition in South Australia next week.
We get tested on the marketability of the car, the overall design of the car, the cost of manufacturing the car, and finally the performance of the car.
And it should perform, costing $40,000 to build, while if the man-hours spent during the design process were calculated, it would have cost $2.5 million. With that in mind, it isn't surprising the launch of the car drew a curious crowd. But what people might not realise is the competition is designed to create positive outcomes for the motoring industry. Motorsports have long provided the innovation that ends up making everyday cars safer.
This competition is the breeding ground for tomorrow's automotive engineers, and many students that have came out of the Formula SAE competition have moved into automotive industries and developed new systems.
Cullen Robinson, NBN News. Nick Flanagan goes through these motions every day, but it's a major reason why the 19-year-old is one of the most promising golfers in the world today. And next week he'll get to show that promise off on the biggest professional stage of his career, the Australian Masters at the famed Huntingdale course in Melbourne. And he's happy with his form after an 18th overall placing at the recent New South Wales Open.
Well, it's my biggest tournament that I've played so far, so I'm looking forward to it a lot. Actually, I'm hitting it pretty well at the moment. I played pretty well last week at the New South Wales Open, so I think my game's good enough to play pretty well next week.
But whether he wins, makes the cut or even plays well, the Australian Masters will provide him with much-needed professional tournament experience, especially as he'll be teeing off in 3 majors next year, the US and British Opens and the prestigious US Masters, after winning exemptions following his US amateur win in August.
This is pretty big Australian-wise, but once you get over to America, I mean, that's the best tour in the world, and they've got the best players in the world, so I mean, that's just going to be completely out of this world for me.
Cullen Robinson, NBN News. The modifications to the site are subtle, but could prove all the difference if enough water to sink a city passes through.
We've improved the safety of the dam to accommodate a 1 in a million year flood. And to put that into perspective, the floods that affected Maitland in 1954 were a 1 in a 100-year flood.
Hunter Water was forced to make the $2 million changes after the Weather Bureau readjusted its long-term forecast, predicting more rain in the dam's catchment area.
What we've done is we've put in some drainage holes, and we've also carried out some alterations to part of the dam wall.
Closed for 9 months, the dam was reopened to a patient public this morning, with Hunter Water also improving the site's picnic areas.
And when the public come to the dam now, they'll see we've upgraded our picnic areas, we've upgraded roads, and we're going to carry out some other minor works as well.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News. Just a handful of people attended today's pre-conference workshops, but an estimated 500 delegates are expected to contribute to the conference, which starts tomorrow at Newcastle University.
Yes, we have teachers and principals, social workers, psychologists, community workers, researchers, policymakers, who are all interested in family and community work.
Jodie Kretzmann from America's Northwestern University is among the headline acts and, among other things, will speak about how important it is for families to concentrate on what they have rather than what they don't when sorting through domestic problems.
We sometimes use the symbol of a half-full glass, and we think that things change in a community when you stop looking only at the half-empty part of the glass and you start looking at what's there and not what's not there.
The conference concludes on Wednesday. Adam McIlrick, NBN News. Emergency services were called to the popular hang gliding takeoff spot on Mount Lyell shortly before midday. There they found the 43-year-old pilot with chest and back injuries 100 metres below Heaton's Lookout, 11 kilometres west of Toronto. The man, with 2 years hang gliding experience, told paramedics he lost control of the craft and crashed into dense bush after misjudging wind currents. Sydney's Careflight helicopter was called to winch the man out some 2.5 hours after he hit the ground. He was then taken to the John Hunter Hospital, where he's in a stable condition. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
A Sydney man died, 12 homes and 6,000 hectares were destroyed in the path of the Abernathy bushfires. It's believed an arsonist caused the havoc, criminal behaviour that's on the rise in the Cessnock region.
There is a need in all areas to prevent arson, but I see a greater need in Cessnock at the present time as the incidence of arson have increased over the past year.
To help combat the problem, the New South Wales Fire Brigade joined forces with the local council, police and the Rural Fire Service at Mountview High today to launch a community fire safe program. It suggests ways to reduce the risk of arson, including prevention strategies, and urges people to take a stand.
And we're calling on the community that if they see anything suspicious in the area regarding fire, is to ring the Crime Stoppers number.
In 2001, around 7,000 deliberately lit fires across the state cost an estimated $180 million in commercial and private property loss. Authorities say in the Cessnock region, the firebug season coincides with the start of the summer school holiday break.
Well, I never realised how quickly fire could spread in a room, and so that was kind of surprising.
It's called the 999 route. 2 buses travel through the inner city every 15 minutes along Hunter, King and Derby streets, as well as the foreshore. It's part of a trial which runs until the 24th of January. So, people are being encouraged to make the most of the free ride while it lasts.
We're saying to people, try town, come back into town, park your car anywhere and get on the free bus. It's so simple and it's a very comfortable way to do your shopping.
It's the second time the Newcastle Alliance has funded the service on behalf of retailers at a cost of $40,000.
And while you might think it's costly, for a couple of months, being able to get people on the bus and moving around the city and more people coming into the city, we think it's a great investment in the city's future.
Newcastle Lord Mayor John Tate says the service could be a permanent feature once the city's public transport options are finalised. But until then, expect more debate, especially over the future of the Newcastle rail line. Maitland Mayor Peter Blackmore was today reluctant to comment on how hundreds of commuters in Maitland will be affected if the rail line is cut. He says he will wait until the final report is released by the Lower Hunter Transport Working Group. Meanwhile, the Save Our Rail group is ensuring its voice is heard. It will stage a rally this Saturday. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
The new season opened just after sunrise, with prawn fishermen wasting no time trying to make up for the month-long wait to work the river. By mid-morning, up to 8 trawlers were on the Hexham Bridge section of the waterway. At the Raymond Terrace end, Brian Finch was trying his luck, but today's catch didn't compare to what was netted during New South Wales fisheries trials to determine if prawn stocks were ready for harvest.
They've left the terrace, there's no doubt, with a bit of a fresh and the rain will come down dirty water, which is excellent to have, but I'm afraid we've lost our prawn.
Just when the Hunter River prawn season should begin has been the subject of much debate. Brian Finch believes today proves December is just too late.
We've tried to push for a 3 days after the October moon for some time now. I think eventually common sense will prevail, and we'll get around to a really well-controlled and well-organised management plan.
Newcastle Commercial Fishermen's Co-op has taken delivery of 200 kilograms of Hunter River prawns by late this afternoon. They hit the market at $16 a kilogram, with the first catches expected to sell quickly. Gary Blair, NBN News. Classrooms were open, but public school playgrounds throughout the Hunter were deserted because of this morning's teachers' stop work. It took less than 30 minutes for teachers to hear about the lack of progress on the pay claim and to decide their next move. The Carr government's tactics at the industrial court hearing of the pay claim only fuelled teachers' anger.
They've consistently denigrated us in the Industrial Relations Commission. Our witnesses have been really dragged through the coals and cross-examined on every line of their affidavits. And it's simply not fair. We simply want a fair assessment of our work value.
That mood was reflected when they considered the February strike and a raft of work bans effective from term 1 next year. The Hunter and Cardiff vote overwhelmingly endorsed the tough stance, and despite the expected inconvenience, teachers want the support of parents.
Either we support teachers, we value them, and in that way the education of students is where it should be. Otherwise that standard could very well drop.
Hunter Labor MPs will also be targeted to support the teachers' campaign. Gary Blair, NBN News.
It hasn't taken long for the Eastern Hill at Energy Australia Stadium to shed its past in preparation for the future. Some seating has been moved while most structures have been demolished, leaving a bare mound of dirt where a 12,000-seat stand will go. But of more immediate concern for the Hunter ISC Trust is the lighting failure during last Friday night's United Perth Glory NSL match. The Trust says the problem, a faulty cable, is being repaired and hopes there isn't a repeat. And today it was announced the New South Wales Waratahs will play another trial match at the stadium before its Super 12 season. The team played Canterbury in a thriller last year, and with the success of the Rugby World Cup, organisers expect a good turnout from a rugby-starved Hunter public for the clash with Waikato on January 30.
It was unfortunate we didn't have a game here in Newcastle, and it's probably because of the stadium that we didn't. We're trying to keep bringing top-level rugby to Newcastle, and once the stadium's fully developed here, I'm sure that we'll be able to promote some big games of rugby here in Newcastle.
Tickets are available tomorrow. Colin Robinson, NBN News.
Daughter Portia didn't stray far from Dad, but the man himself was still being sought after today. Even on a day off, the big striker didn't want to stay off the pitch, especially after blasting back to form against Perth. Since scoring in the season opener, the Fijian captain has enjoyed a lean run of form before his crisp header against Perth.
It gives me confidence scoring goals, and through the week Crook has been working me hard in those positions, and hopefully it starts to pay out.
Missing last weekend with a knee complaint, Milan Blagojevic has been added to the squad to play the Melbourne Knights, but even if past fit, it's unlikely he'll start.
It would be harsh on any single one of them to leave them out after their individual and collective performances last week.
Newcastle has never tasted success against the Knights at home, and this Sunday seems like the perfect time to break the hoodoo. A win would make the trip a whole lot better.
After almost 15 years, Glenn Oakley's lies are finally catching up with him. Today, the ICAC presented a report to State Parliament. It found Mr Oakley had engaged in corrupt conduct by falsely claiming 4 degrees in his job applications. Mr Oakley admitted he created the degrees in the late 1980s. He said, "What I did with them was that I photocopied them, inserted my name onto them and re-photocopied them." But he even took the step of having a Justice of the Peace certify copies of the forged degrees. According to the investigation, the first time Mr Oakley lied about his qualifications was in 1987, where he made a dramatic career move. He went from being a mortuary assistant to holding a senior position with the Maritime Services Board. In 1996, he became Chief Executive Officer of the Newcastle Ports Corporation, earning more than $200,000 a year. But in August 2001, his lies began to unravel. A recruitment firm became aware of his false claims. The ICAC heard evidence that Mr Oakley told the firm he had been given an identity, including academic qualifications, by an Australian intelligence organisation, and he claimed to have been an undercover agent. The Commission has recommended that Mr Oakley be prosecuted under the Crimes Act and that changes be made to public sector recruitment practices to help prevent such conduct in the future.
It's a distinctly Newcastle landmark, and by this time next year, the place where you could be getting a bird's-eye view of a working harbour. Public access to the headland is one benefit of Nobby's Lighthouse Consortium, a group led by restaurateur Neil Slater being named as Newcastle Port Corporation's preferred operator of the site.
The same profile that exists there at the moment, the 3 cottages will be turned into bed and breakfast type accommodation. There will be a cafe.
The announcement comes with Newcastle retaining its crown as the world's largest coal exporter. A record 71.4 million tonnes left the harbour in the last financial year. That mark and the port's annual tonnage record, which has stood for 4 years, are now expected to be broken in the next 12 months by the shipping demand currently waiting out to sea.
In 1999, the record was about 78.4 million tonnes. We believe we'll break that this year.
And in a surprise development, the Port Corporation is looking for a new chief executive after the state government today promoted Chris Oxenbould to acting CEO of the state's Waterways Authority. Gary Blair, NBN News.
The last significant link to Newcastle's steelworks past, the No. 4 blast furnace, spent its final moments being mined by those who once worked the iron giant. Some even settled into vantage points so they could capture a split second in history. And at just after midday, a siren sounded and the steel legs holding the blast furnace up were pulled away and it came crashing down. For some, like John Gillespie, the day was tinged with sadness. The former furnace manager was joined by old workmates to see a significant chapter of their lives close.
The memories are from all the people and the hard work and the building of the thing. I mean, the great effort you put in over the years is now lying on the ground.
But there was also optimism. Multony Adams, the company entrusted with the demolition, says the entire site should be cleared and cleaned by April. That's when BHP Billiton expects to hand it over to the New South Wales government.
This site has tremendous opportunities to afford to the region, to the state and to the nation, and my personal hope is that it happens sooner rather than later.
Cullen Robinson, NBN News.
An Aladdin's Cave, this police storeroom is home to thousands of dollars worth of stolen equipment, and if your DVD, VCR or computer is among this lot, chances are it's not engraved.
And the more items that are recorded with serial numbers and model numbers and inscriptions of numbers such as licence numbers, far better opportunity for us to identify that property and return it to the owner.
Many of those returned items were most probably picked up here, a special computer database which tracks goods that are sold to pawn dealers. But police won't know if the item is stolen unless they can cross-reference recovered goods with a special number engraved on the product.
Their licence number is probably the best number to use in description because that's just the number for that particular person.
The NRMA has found the most popular items stolen last year were jewellery, televisions and cameras, all of which can be engraved with volunteers in policing able to assist. Police are also asking when opening presents on Christmas Day, don't leave the empty box out the front for collection. They claim it only informs potential thieves there's new goods to be taken. Adam McIlrick, NBN News. As of the new financial year, Maitland will lose all harness race meetings, operating instead as a fully funded training track, but the city's harness club boss is yet to be convinced.
We've had no commitment in dollar terms from Harness Racing New South Wales. They've had plenty of time to think about it, plenty of time to work out how much, but as each day goes by from now till June 30, we'll be anxious until the figure's put to us.
It's part of a massive shake-up by the state's Harness Racing Authority to cut administration costs and increase prize money. The Maitland Club has accepted change will take place, but is calling for an ironclad guarantee by Harness Racing New South Wales to properly finance and maintain what's now being called a training track.
If they come out and tell us we're going to get $70,000 a year, then fair enough to retain the training track. If it's 20, totally different story. We've lost out big time.
But they say one's loss is another's gain, and it couldn't be further from the truth for the Newcastle Harness Club, a future Level 1 regional racing centre.
We're going from 41 meetings to 76 meetings. It's a big increase, but yeah, we'll cope with that. There will be genuine increases and solid returns to the participants.
It's also expected many of those working at the Maitland Club will be given jobs at Newcastle to cope with the growing number of meetings. Adam McIlrick, NBN News. Maitland City Mayor Peter Blackmore anticipates this land near Thornton will be ready for inspection by potential buyers early in the new year. A large portion of the estate will include 1,200 and 1,500 square metre blocks, but that's subject to approval by the State Planning Department.
The current trend with planning is to have smaller lots, and that starts from Sydney because it is deemed to be a waste of resources when they have to service larger lots.
Councillor Blackmore says another hurdle facing developers is the apparent lack of infrastructure.
We have objections from the RTA regarding the traffic flow, particularly on Thornton Road and Weekleys Drive.
That upgrade will also serve to benefit the planned Pirates Stadium development, with this land at Thornton set aside for the $25 million five-stage project.
Our engineers have inspected stadiums at Wollongong and South Australia, where they've got a beautiful new facility there to get this stadium to be up there with the best of them.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
These days, no time is a good time to play the Sydney Kings, but tonight the Pirates host the league's defending champions who've suffered 2 successive losses, and the home side hope they can continue their glamour side's mini slump. Helping their cause, the return of captain Matt Shanahan and big forward Michael Kingma.
Last week we looked down the bench and looking, and with nothing but young kids there, but now we've got Michael Kingma and Matt Shanahan coming off the bench for us, so we've got some extra scoring power there.
And some great news today for the Northern New South Wales Soccer Federation, which has won the right to remain autonomous, under threat to amalgamate in accordance with the Crawford Report's recommendations to restructure the code in Australia. Northern has been guaranteed a further 2 years as a standalone federation in the ASA. Firstly, though, Northern must address constitutional and structural changes in line with the ASA, and it's scheduled an extraordinary general meeting early next year for its members to decide.
It would have made for motor racing heaven in the Hunter, a development just north of Raymond Terrace featuring a quarter-mile drag strip and a 3-kilometre circuit worth between $5 and $15 million. But on the request of the developer, Port Stephens Council rejected a development application which was initially lodged in January 2002.
Council has refused the application because we don't have enough information to make a valid assessment that meets the requirements of both our own assessment and the assessment required by other statutory authorities.
Council cited 18 concerns from the DA, including the inappropriate use of land and ineffective noise control measures, while the Roads and Traffic Authority and Hunter Water also objected. Hunter Water concerned about its proximity to Grahamstown Dam. The company behind the proposal, Motorplex, now intends to appeal the decision and take the matter to the Land and Environment Court. Cullen Robinson, NBN News.
Even before the lights were switched on, Gracelands was already a sight to behold. With a little help from the Floraville Public School Band, that Christmas spirit was never far away, with the not-so-big man in red presiding over what's undoubtedly one of the most flamboyant Christmas displays in the Hunter. From one sound and light spectacular to the next. A hallmark of a truly Aussie Christmas, the South Kataris cicadas were on song at Bob Lee's house. This is 19th year in the game, with all money donated given to Hunter Medical Research. From humble beginnings in 1985, when Mickey Mouse and friends were the stars of the show, it's now a full-on production, taking in some 8,000 lights and 95 character cutouts, with some very special visitors expected to make an appearance on Sunday night. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
It seems a few hours can be a long time in terms of national basketball. Captain Matt Shanahan completed a light training session this morning and was cleared to join his teammates in the trip north, but he never made it to the bus.
It's a very tough call, and Matt's not very happy with the decision. But at the end of the day, I'm making that decision based on what the team needs.
That opened up room for Tim Hudson to join the squad as everyone searches for consistency. Since taking over the coaching reins 2 weeks ago, Dave Simmons has tried to implement a new offence while avoiding radical change and believes it's starting to bear fruit.
We're coming around, they're getting there, and it's getting to the point where this morning I'm looking at it saying, boy, that looks good.
But it's holding that look for the full 4 quarters of the match. Bold starts against the Breakers and Sydney were tempered by poor second periods, and off nights from key shooters don't help.
We'll try different things to try to get the guys better shots, but at the end of the day, I can't go out there and put it in the hole for them.
Meanwhile, Ben Melmoth will play his 200th NBL match also tomorrow night in New Zealand Breakers match against Melbourne. The 28-year-old's career began with the Newcastle Falcons back in 1996.
Sometimes a few words of encouragement or a chance encounter may be all that's needed to turn your life around. That's what happened to Robert and Alana after they received a Mayoral Academic Award.
We really need to encourage the young people in our area to go and do the best they can, and programs like this really help them do that.
Cessnock Council and local businesses have united to help young people like Robert achieve their academic goals. He was one of 13 people to receive a scholarship to help him complete his communications degree. For Alana, the financial help enabled her to finish a hospitality course at TAFE. She says young people shouldn't be afraid to aim high.
You're the one that's got to do it. It's a personal thing. You can't rely on other people throughout your life to set your goals for you and tell you where you want to go. Ultimately, you're the master of your own destiny, and that's what it's all about.
Applications for next year's academic awards close late January. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
There was no mistaking why these little wigglers were at the entertainment centre this afternoon.
I'm Greg and Dorothy the dinosaur. Because of all the colours.
While some got into the groove early practising their moves, others took an energy nap, and it's just as well. There was 80 minutes of non-stop entertainment. And the show was just as exhausting for these little movers and groovers. The Wiggles wrap up their Australian tour in Sydney on Sunday. Colleen West, NBN News.
maybe if we get Geordie in there early, gives us a bit of a help in the scoring area and also in the rebounding. So maybe this will help with our balance.
What a year it's been for the Olive Branch Cafe on Hannell Street. Once closed, it reopened, hoping to survive another 12 months. It did, and thanks to a timely investment by the Department of Education, Science and Training today, it will continue to operate for some time yet.
The cafe's come along, it's gone up by 40% in clientele, and we've put, I think, about 40 young people through accredited training.
$170,000 will be spent on the Salvation Army's ARC program, which provides training and employment opportunities for young people at the Olive Branch and This Way Up Furniture at Islington. Given the financial boost, 4 new traineeships will be created at the furniture making business, which can now forecast 3 years in front, providing further job security for the company's 7 full-time employees.
As 2 years ago, we looked like we were closing, and now we look like we're expanding. So it's quite a good outcome, and gives us a future, a 3-year future at least.
Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
Since arriving home from her second professional season in Japan, Natalie Ward has spent much of that time receiving treatment for a shoulder problem. The complaint actually stems from an old fracture in her hand that went unchecked for 2 years. The ongoing pain ultimately affected her throwing arm shoulder, but now surgery and intense physiotherapy will correct both problems.
I'll have the operation on the 12th of January, which is straight after Nationals, and probably about 6 weeks. And I'll be back and up and running, hopefully good as gold.
The break will actually be welcome. Regarded as one of the world's best players, Ward has mixed professional seasons in Japan with representative commitments in recent years and understands the demands of an Olympic year and wants to be in the best possible condition. With 2 bronze medals already to her credit, should the result be right this time around, it could well be her last.
If we get the change the colour of the medals that we've got in the past, yeah, I could say I'd be happy to hang out the boots.
Tim Thompson didn't know what all the fuss was about. Pulled away from work, told he had visitors who brought with them very good tidings. That piece of paper was enough to book the redhead worker a spot in the gruelling Foster Ironman triathlon, something he thought was well and truly out of reach. That was until his wife secretly applied for a wildcard entry on his behalf, writing to the race organisers, informing them of his injury-riddled 4-year campaign to qualify at previous half-Ironman events.
Well, I thought I'd be up there watching next year. I've got a couple of mates doing it for the first time, so should be good. Excited.
Oh, he's very excited. He just doesn't show it too much. He's a quiet person, but yeah, it'll sink in soon.
And it better. He has just under 4 months to prepare for the 3.8 kilometre swim, 180 kilometre bike ride and 42k run, paving the way for training and plenty of it.
Probably 2.5, 3 hours each afternoon and all weekend. So have to give everything else a miss now.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News. Given his CV, it's little wonder he wasn't appointed to the state's medical board some time before this. A widely published medical writer and researcher, Professor Alan Spiegelman will represent all New South Wales universities on the 20-member board.
And it's there to ensure that doctors are fit to practice and that students are fit to practice. And by that one means that the doctors are competent, they perform well and work to appropriate and acceptable codes of behaviour.
The only member to live outside Sydney, Professor Spiegelman will attempt to increase the number of doctors practising in regional areas.
I think my role is to make sure that we don't hold up unnecessarily, for example, registrations of overseas doctors who might help fill some of those vacant positions.
Among other things, he'll continue to lecture at Newcastle University, remain the head of 2 Hunter medical committees, as well as holding down his position at Hunter Health. His term on the board will expire in 2007. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
Their Newcastle club rivalry withstanding the early meeting of top seeds Merewether and Hamilton Wickham was being likened to an unofficial final. After rain delayed the start, former state second 11 batsman Reece Soper kick-started things in just the second over. Country speedster Duncan McElveen claimed him next over, the first of a 3-wicket haul, while Neil Crittenden did it all himself to remove Shane Hughes, and it was quickly 2 for 12. Run rate wasn't a drama. Andrew Mullard pummelling the boundary fence early in his innings. But wickets were,